Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Untitled Reviews. This being a show where it's about TV shows that are dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Squid Game Season 1, Episode 3. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I guess it never crossed my mind like how they got people to the island, because we are talking about getting initially 456 people to the island, so that was kind of interesting, but it's like, right, it makes sense, but, because at first I thought, wait, are they going by plane? It's like, they can't, like, how do you get that many? It's like, no, unless it's a private plane. It's like, no, boat's a lot less, inconspicuous, so they're just, like, load all the vans on the boat, and I love that, Junho just, like, snuck aboard, slid underneath the car, and when the time came, he tried to sneak in amongst, like, Jihoon's, like, van. He tried to pretend like he was one of the people. But it seems like they have a scanner, and for whatever reason, I guess they, like, it, somehow, because the others, it makes sense because they're returners, so I guess those particular vans that showed up now were returners. Maybe any new, because that was the whole point. Because that was something I was like, I thought, and now it makes sense, like, why he wasn't part of this. At first I was like, right, it's like, there's no newcomers. This is a continuation, because they go, like, jumping ahead, this is game number 2. I was like, oh, so when they quit, I thought we were refreshing it. That was a complete misunderstanding on my part. We were continuing from the previous game, because, like, the money was still there. I was like, that's weird. I would have expected that to go. It's like, no, the game was on pause, and it's like, if you want to continue the game, come back. Most of the people came back. It ended up being like a total of 187 out of the 201. They were like, yeah, it's like a 93% like return rate. And even the boss is like, right, find out and keep an eye on the ones who didn't come back. Because the question is, why didn't they? Because everyone there was desperate enough. So, like, what happened to those people? Like, drawing unnecessary attention. It's like, what happened to make them not want to come back? Did they kill themselves? Did some extenuating circumstances happen? It does beg the question, like, what happened to those other few? That other 7%, like, why didn't they come back like everyone else did? I mean, the fact is, 93% is a pretty high retention rate. The fact is like, yeah, everyone is so desperate, knowing that this is a game of death. It's like, they're still that desperate. Like, life was still such hell that they were like, no, let's go back to this game. At least I have better chances here than out there in the real world, especially with so much money on the line. So, but that's why Junho wasn't, like, that's why they immediately found him out, because it's like, no, everyone here is supposed to be a returner. They haven't started a new game, so that's why he wasn't in the registry. Luckily, Junho killed the guy, put his badge on him, and tossed him off, because, like, because he texted his boss, like, yeah, I'm not coming in, so whenever his body is retrieved, it's going to look like it's Junho's body. So he played that pretty damn well. But obviously, we have our crews, like, everyone waking up. You've got number 1, and everyone keeps the same numbers because this is the same group, so they've retained their same numbers. So Old Man is still number 1. Ji-kun is still 456. Sang-woo is still his number, because it's like 200 something, I think. And then Ali is still 199. So, and they've decided to kind of stick together, because it's like, right, like, it's like, oh, like, he's like, Ali is super strong. So, and obviously Sang-woo is kind of the brains of the operation. He's like, I'm like the sergeant. And then, like, the Old Man, he's like number 1. Yeah, he's like the old time major that's been through plenty of battles. So they formed their own little squad. I was wrong about Gangster Dude. His number's 101. I forever in my head, I switched to 1 and 0. I thought he was like 110. But 67 is still 67. Obviously, she has no intentions of joining 101, but she tells everyone else, do not join with this dude. This dude's an asshole. The fact is, he steals out of his subordinates' pockets, to the point he stole out his boss's pocket, but then got caught. So now that's why he's in the situation he's in. So she knows, because they were like, they were working together at some point in time. So she knows what his circumstances are. Do you have 212 being like, oh, you don't need a skinny girl like her, you need me? And then, like, they're kind of joking, like, oh, you're good, and they kind of make an emotion, like, I took it as, like, it's supposed to be like a sexual emotion of, like, all right, we'll find you if need be, or something like that. So, I also love that, like, she's the one that makes such a stink about, like, I need to go to the bathroom. Fine, if you don't want to help me out, I'm gonna pee right here. But then, like, 67 is like, no, I gotta go to the bathroom, too. She's like, oh, you let me do all the hooping and hollering, and then, like, all of a sudden, like, you gotta go, too. So she's in the bathroom, she pulls something out of her vagina, and it's like, yeah, it's a whole bunch of cigarettes. It's like, man, that nicotine addiction. It's like, all right, she's up there enjoying it, and then like 67 is like, I gotta go to the air vent to see what's what. It's just like, okay, and just like offers up her shoulder because it's like, cool, I'll come back and let you know whatever it is I find. So she crawls in the vent and sees them making stuff. And at first she's like, I don't know what to make of this. But now in the context of what the next game is, they were preparing, you know. So at the very least, her doing that gave her not full insight, but gave her some idea what the next game is. Not fully. Like, you get a general idea, like, okay, it has something to do with this. But because I guess Sang-woo heard the same thing. Because we know Ji-hoon, like, he heard 212 and 67 when they were like walking back, which first and foremost, I love that, you know, it's just like, it's that very like exaggeratedness of just kind of like, oh, I'm so much pain. It's good. It's like giving birth to a child or something. Like she was making exaggerated excuses like, oh, I'm running out of tissue. I'm going to have to use this thing. Oh, she's slapping her arms like she's slapping her butt and stuff like that to clean herself. Luckily, 67 came back in time, so there was no issue. Granted, she didn't screw the thing back in all the way, which I didn't talk about it, but I love how smooth she was, because she was faking sleep. It's like, that speaks, I guess, considering her circumstances, maybe you get really good at, like, having to fake stuff like that. So she pretended like she was knocked out. She put, like, her pocket knife in that home dude's pocket, and when he was done, like, they finished searching her and changing her, she just reached back in. It's like, she's like Parker from Leverage. So it kind of reminded me just like how slick she is at that. So what I also thought was interesting is like Ji-hoon being like, yeah, I don't like milk. He's like, can I get chocolate milk? I'm like, this ain't Burger King. You can't have it your way. I'm sure there are Burger Kings in Korea, because I'm about to say like, yeah, that's a big enough restaurant. Because I'm about to say like, but I don't know if that colloquialism, like that slogan, I don't know if that, I don't know if that's a world international slogan. Like Burger King is like, have it your way is their slogan, but I'm like, I wonder, does that change from country to countries? Because you know their menus change from country to country, so I'm curious, do their mottos, or is it just the same thing? Would it just be have it your way, but it's in Korean? I don't know, I just thought that was kind of interesting. But Sang-woo didn't want the food, and I thought it was interesting. I guess because he noticed that 67 wasn't eating, he was like, she knows something, so if she's not eating, I'm not going to eat. Because what got her suspicious is like, right, she knows that they were baking something, because she recognized the smell. She was like, smells like sugar, but she wasn't sure, so it made her suspicious of the food. Or at least she was trying to figure it out. So I think that's why Sang-woo was like, no, I'm not going to eat. So he gave his to Ali, and even Ji-hoon gave his milk to Ali, could, obviously he doesn't want it either. But I also love that number one was like, oh, like Ji-hoon, like, you remind me of my, like, oh, I bet your mom spanked you a lot. And he was like, how did you know? He's like, yeah. I'm like, because you remind me a lot of my son, and like the same thing would happen in that regard. But what I think is really interesting too, it isn't just the participants we got to see a little bit more. We got to see a little behind the scenes with the I don't know if you call them the game administrators, like the lower level people who are kind of on the ground, kind of taking care of things. We got that from Junho's perspective. Them going to their rooms, him going to 29, and just kind of like, right, you get fed meals. There is a camera there. So I guess he has his face hidden enough. I'm like, well, there's a problem. You're sitting in front of a mirror, so they could always probably zoom in, but they're probably not going to think too much of it. Who knows if they really keep tabs of you would assume they would. So, but I think he was like, you see him kind of turn his face a little bit, but probably not enough for like facial recognition to really kick in, if there is any. So I think it's just, but I'm like, that mirror thing probably not a good idea to be eating in front of that, because like they could always like probably zoom in and see that. But it didn't seem like he wasn't caught necessarily. So I guess either they don't keep a good enough record about that, which, like I said, I assume they would, and he just lucked out in that situation. We'll have to wait and see. But obviously, they are limited to what they can do, too. Like, obviously, they have their own rules. You can't take your mask off. Do not speak unless given permission. And don't leave your room unless you're given permission. So, they've got their own 3 rules to follow. So, just like kind of like Alice in Borderland, the administrator to those games had their own set of rules of what they had to do and what they could do. Same thing applies to this. They're just as much participants in this. And it's like, if they make a misstep, they're just as dead as any other participant. Now, what are they getting out of it? Is it the same thing? Who knows? Either way, his neighbor, which is 28, is super suspicious. Like the moment he was like stumbling to put his key in, he was looking at him. The moment he exit, he turns and sees that 28's looking at him. So it's like, why is he so? But then like he ends up in the wrong spot during the game because he's only meant to be there. His position, his duty is to retrieve the bodies. So it's like, why are you here? Because if you do notice, there are 3 different ones. There's the triangle, there's the square, and there's the circle. Each one has their designated duties at different points in time. So he was at the wrong place at the wrong time. But it's like, right, we'll talk about that after the game. Which, speaking of the game, we got introduced to it. Obviously, the question was like, all right, they go into that like giant playground. It's like, okay, so what is this game? They're all trying to figure it out. And basically, they all have to go pick a shape. And they were kind of looking to Sung-woo to figure out like which one to go to. Sung-woo kind of remembered the moment he saw the shapes, he remembered what it was. I should also point out, you had 111. That bastard's got some inside help. Like, once again, the whole point is, like, just in case there's someone here that you know that you'll have an unfair advantage, he has an unfair advantage because someone or some people have started to rig this game somehow, and it's kind of in his favor. We don't know the full circumstances yet, but he got a warning ahead of time saying honeycomb. And so Sang-woo remembered, like being a child. Now that makes me wonder, like, seeing what we saw in that flashback, I wonder, because I was under the impression, like, Ji-hoon was the one that, like the Squid Game at the beginning of the first episode. I thought that was his flashback, but it might actually be Sang-woo's. Because Ali never, like, obviously this is kind of foreign to him, so, like, he didn't grow up with the same games, but they're like, no, whatever the games are, like, because Ji-hoon figured, like, because it was a kid's game, like red light, green light, that most likely every other game was too, so he starts listing off, like, very specific Korean games. Obviously some, at least, because there was at least one, I don't remember what it was, that it wasn't a specific Korean name. It was like, it was translated in English, so it was like it was a very probably like universal game. Like red light, green light is universal, but there were some of those, like it's the one that he played against the guy before signing up for the games. It's the one where you like take that your card, the red or the blue, and you make the other, like you have to flip the other one over. Like he references that one amongst them, so it's like. But they're going to help Ali if there's any games that he doesn't understand, like, the rules of. But like I said, Sang-woo, like, kind of figured it out. And Ji-hoon's like, oh, did you figure anything out? He's like, oh, no. And he just told everyone which one to go to. He knew exactly what it was. But the reason why he decided not to help anyone out, because it's like, right. Because he started thinking to himself, yeah, this is we are a cooperative team, but it's if we pass, cool, but if you lose, that's better, because at the very least, this will help test my hypothesis so that we all don't pick the same thing. Because if they start picking the same thing, it's going to look a little suspicious, so he wanted to probably evenly spread it. That way, he probably can also, like, it's probably like a situation of, oh, let me test out my hypothesis to see if it's true, so we're all going to get the 4 different ones. Ali, like, wanted the circle because it reminded him of the moon. Ji-hoon wanted the umbrella because he used to, like, he used to bug his mom about getting one of a really good umbrella. And number 1 picked the star because he was like, right, you don't get to see too many stars these days. So he happily took that. Whereas Sang-woo took the triangle, which arguably probably is definitely the easiest of the 4. It still takes time and everything, but the whole point is to take this and basically carve out the shape that's been outlined, whether it's the circle, triangle, star, or umbrella, without breaking or cracking it. You break it or crack it, that's when the bodies start dropping. The first poor bastard was at 393, shot in the head, slid down the slide. And then slowly but surely, like, you know, it's like, once again, it's that thing of, like, you have to also find the balance of continuing the game and doing it without letting other people's deaths in the gunshots. That's why they make it so brutal. Like, if they wanted to, they can make it something efficient, like, oh, they just stab you. They do, but it's like, no, the gunshots going off is another part of the game of, like, oh, while people are dying around you, like, not only can you keep under the pressure with people dying around you, but the gunshot is enough to startle you, especially in a situation like this, as well as the previous game where, like, precision is necessary. More so this one, but still the precision knowing not to move and let anything make you flinch to make too subtle. You got to make sure your movements are, like, little and subtle, that they're not registered by the thing. but it's the same effect of like, yeah, these gunshots are meant to throw you off. It's kind of it's meant to be a literal like knock you off your game while also being it's a tactic. So I love that 212. She had it a little easier because she has a lighter on her and she was underneath the slide. She just lit her lighter and it made it sliding into the breading a lot easier. So, and once again, Sangwoo had an easier time because it was a triangle. Triangle, it still sucks regardless, but it's still easier than the other ones. Especially because the umbrella has more that could break. Like, I mean, the circle has to be like a perfect circle, but the star, like, there's a lot that can still go wrong, and the same for the umbrella. There's, like, it's a very intricate shape that you have to, like, kind of carve out, and, you know, Ji-hoon's stuck with that. So, and I love that it's, like, it's down to the wire as people are dying, people are completing, but once again, like, 111, he finished, and someone's like, oh, to the right, or to the left, or whatever. He goes down the stairs and follows someone else, so it's like, yeah, he's getting help from not just one, a lot of people are helping him out. Like, I guess that some of the people that are the guards got registered here just so they could help 111 out. I'm thinking, so we'll see. Like, once again, the game isn't 100% fair like it should be. But I love that as the wire was counting down, Ji-hoon decided to, he looked at the breading, he was like, right, I can, if I lick it, I can make it thinner. So he starts licking it, everyone else is looking at him, and you can see on the cameras, like, some of the guards are looking down, like, what the hell is he doing? And other people nearby start doing his tactic, like, you know, number one tries it, because he got part of the way there. Ali luckily was, and because Ali took his time, so he was breaking off small piece after small piece after small piece, and luckily got the circle finished, but everyone else started copying Ji-hoon, and luckily they all ended up finishing. All the rest, well, the final guy, he had an umbrella, and he didn't make it, so he stabs one of the people and takes him hostage. They immediately decide to kill everyone else, and he's like, right, if you don't want me to kill you, kid, person, take off the mask, and he does, and it's a kid underneath. He's like, what did they do to convince you? And kid was stone-faced, didn't say anything, but the moment he did that, I was like, oh, you're dead, because, well, the number one rule is not, well, the big boss said, like, oh, the moment you let them see your face, you're dead. We already know the rule was like, well, I guess that counts as rule number one, because the rule is just never take off your mask. So, like, I guess that falls under, like, a stipulation for one is specifically, like, if you have your mask off, it's one thing, but having your mask off and letting them actually see your face, they're not supposed to know what you look like, so it might kind of fall in that category. Either way, Home Dude ended up killing himself. I thought that the guards were going to rip through Home Dude. It's like, oh, you think you can take him hostage? No, we're going to kill him and kill you. But it's like, because I guess they had to wait for the boss to come through, because it's like, the moment he took his mask off, I felt like that would have been an opportunity to wipe him out. But boss came over after Home Dude killed himself, and then he kills the master. He's like, right, they see your face, you're dead too. And like everyone that completed the game, all they heard were like the bullets riddling like upstairs. So because Sang-woo kind of figured out what was going on too, because 67 gave him some insight to like what she saw in the VIDS. So once again, he had an unfair advantage. He wasn't sure, but he had a better idea than anyone else about what was going on. Well, not better than like 111. So also 212 had 101's back and gave him the lighter at the last second, so he got it in the end too. So, but luckily, like, well, a lot of the main characters we're following, including 212 now, ended up passing the test, so. But at the end, I don't know if that's supposed to be implying, like, the dude that died was 28, the guy that was suspicious of Junho. He might be dead now, so he probably doesn't have to worry about it, considering that. I could be mistaken. I'm not paying attention to the details like I should, but I think that's what that's kind of implying with the voiceover at the end. So, luckily, Junho kind of escaped that. So, very, very interesting into the episode. I'm excited to see where the next episode ends up taking us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.